Okay, we have a super fun topic today, and it goes back to one of my earliest experiences that showed me there was more to life and that there's ways to manage our feelings and our experiences. And so that is how to release anxiety. And before we get into some of the more practical tools of how to do that, what happened to me was the experience of taking on too much work. I was driving down La Cienega in Los Angeles, and I had just said yes to too many projects and was getting more and more stressed out, thinking about the next meeting and the next meeting. What was I going to say or do, and the demands, and got to the point where I started to panic. So I had a choice in that moment. I remember pulling over and thinking, right, either I go into full blown panic attack mode or something has to change. And so in that moment, something happened. It was not really my doing, but I surrendered my whole system in order to prevent going into panic mode. I just let go. And so that was one of the first opportunities for me to reflect on, well, what did I let go of actually? It was the same situation as a moment ago. Nothing had changed. I hadn't talked to anybody. I hadn't made any decisions, and yet suddenly I felt very different. All that stress, all that weight had come off my shoulders, and it felt like I could take on even more work or more projects. So with some reflection, I realized that what I had surrendered to, what I had let go of, was my thoughts. My thoughts about a particular situation, not the situation itself. Situation hadn't happened yet. I was on my way to another meeting. And so the realization started to dawn that most of the stress we create for ourselves, we create by attaching meaning and importance to thoughts. The thoughts are always, things from the past, things from the future, things that haven't happened yet. And so ultimately, we're reacting to something that isn't real. The only thing that's real is what's in front of us. It's happening right now. And we'll talk some more about how to connect to and stay connected to what's in front of us. But in terms of this situation, the release of all this weight um, led to development of a few little simple tricks and tools I want to share today that help me moving forward. Because so much is about creating a practice, not just, oh, okay, now rationally I understand. Yeah, if I'm always attaching myself to thoughts, every thought that comes along, then it stresses me out. But how to actually practically go about it, that's always um, the next important step after rationally understanding a problem. So one of the first things, and I've talked about this in the past, that I learned to do is break overwhelming tasks into less overwhelming tasks. So if we're thinking about something and it seems too big and too stressful and too overwhelming, well, that's a sign that you shouldn't force yourself to move forward with that mindset. These are natural, nature's red flags. When something doesn't feel easy, when it feels hard and like you're having to, you know, punch your way through it, then that's a sign that it's not really meant to be in that way, and that there must be a better way. And one of those better ways that I found was to break that big, overwhelming task into a smaller task that doesn't feel so overwhelming. And so you're really still moving forward, but you're giving yourself the chance to for for um, for having a positive experience, and then building on that positive experience, and then building positive momentum. So in this case, An example might be a big trip that you're about to take with lots of whatever stops. I do this often for this traveling and speaking and touring, and if I think about the whole picture, then it can be like dreadful. There's just so much that needs to happen, so many moving parts, so much energy it feels like it's going to take. And so you don't want to defeat yourself from the get-go, essentially, because that's what we're doing, is we're just creating um, a sense of down momentum. And what I do then is I break that impending trip into small steps. Each step should be no bigger than what still feels light and simple and easy. So that might be focusing on packing your clothes, folding your clothes and putting them into the suitcase, taking the suitcase to the door, from the door waiting for the cab, sitting in the cab, and so on and so on. Small tasks, one at a time, getting closer and closer to the present moment. Some of those things are still not super ultra pure presence, but it's getting there. And that immediately has a positive effect, takes the weight off our shoulders. Our mind evolved during times of survivalism for tens of thousands of millions of years, is used to solving problems, real problems, survival-based problems. And now that most of us don't live in that survival state anymore, the mind still continues to want to solve problems. And because there aren't any, at least not the severe one for most of us, it creates problems. So if we stay in this kind of broader mindset, far away from the true present moment of what's real, then the mind will come up with, it gives it a big canvas to come up with a lot of fake problems. So, and then we spend all this time lost in thought around these fake problems. And that's the monkey mind we've all heard of. We get lost in one thought and the next and the next. And then we're gone for like 5-10 minutes at a time. And we do this constantly. Between 50 and 80% of the day, we're lost in thoughts that are not relevant to the situation at hand. So that's a lot of life missed out on, because while we're lost in thought, we're not really here. We're not present. We're not aware. This is a state of unconsciousness. All right. So another example perhaps is these routines that we struggle with, like going to the gym. This big thought of, oh my gosh, I have to get up again and then go there and do all these exercises and sweat, and then I have to rush back and get ready for work, and it was just like all these extra thoughts that haven't happened yet. So what that might look like is breaking it down to, what I do is I look for my shoes. I focus on tying my shoes. I look for my keys. Where are the keys? Staying with each little micro task. This is why in the military they make you make your bed to perfection and fold your uniform to perfection in the morning, so that you get little wins, a little positive momentum. And there's lots of research how that impacts your day positively. There's also a lot of talk recently about the 1% rule. 1% of improvement consistently leads to overall successful situation. So we shouldn't underestimate, in fact, we should embrace the value of tiny little wins, one perfect moment after another. And perfect, I mean, you're just with the moment. You might not find your car keys for a few minutes, which happens to me on the way to the gym, but just stay focused on that, right? There's an acceptance of what is that underlies all of this. When we're in resistance to what is, if I'm in resistance to not being able to locate my keys, then that just generates more frustration. And if I do that with the keys, if I do that with the shoes, that maybe they're not as clean as I'd like them to be, or they don't fit, or I have to undo the laces to get my feet in there and then redo the laces. I mean, we can be in resistance to everything, the tiniest little things, and then life is no fun. So the important thing with even when breaking things down into little tasks is to see things as they are without wanting them to be different. And that takes some practice. We're used to judging things, good or bad. It doesn't just pertain to the negative. We're used to constantly validating our own beliefs through whatever we see. That's why we only seek out information that we're already familiar with, that we already believe in. And so that creates kind of this comfort zone and sensitivity to alternate way of thinking, alternate ways of living, difference. Just anything that's different, we start to feel offended by and threatened by. And so staying open to things that are different requires being able to take in information without feeling triggered right away. And so again, it's all about seeing things as they are so that we can stay in a clear-headed place, equanimity. You've maybe heard that before. And then from an equanimous place, we can evaluate, not from a judgmental mental lens perspective, but from a body, wisdom, inner voice, intuition, gut instinct perspective. And we just feel the resonance of something. When it resonates, we feel that. We're stuck in our heads, stuck in this mental loop of validation and judging. We don't hear our inner voice. We're just kind of lost in thought again. But when we're clear up in the head, then that channel, that connection to our heart space and our feeling state and our inner divinity, our higher self, all of that is open. And when something resonates, it's our own blueprint, our inner GPS that resonates. Each one of us has our own blueprint that we're meant to live towards. Get out of the head and more into the body so that we can feel what's for us and what's not for us. And that then gives us the ability, and we develop this awareness of navigating life, not from trying to plan it and control it and steer it. We try to plan out our whole life, and then we're in resistance and frustration to when things happen differently. And things happen differently because the nature of life is change. It's ongoing change. And even if we somehow happen to create a situation that we feel great about, because most often it happens differently anyway, but even then, it's temporary joy, it's temporary happiness. And that's not a bad thing. It's just how life works. The external world is in motion. Everything's alive. Everything's evolving. And so even if we create some circumstances where the elements are to our liking, it will eventually pass. And then we have to be able to let go and allow the next moment to come in. This is actually where a sense of abundance comes in, is when then when we don't attach ourselves and cling to one situation and want it to stay and want to keep it there and then fight for it. And that joy of that moment starts to turn into frustration and clinging and steering and fear of losing it. So rather, if we stay open to the next moment, we allow our feelings to arise and pass, the joy can come, we notice it, while it's here, we experience it fully. But then when it starts to fade, because new life comes along, being open to the new life, the new moment, it brings a sense of abundance, of like new things happening, new opportunities, new sensory experiences, new insights about ourselves and the world. And life actually speeds up in that way because we're experiencing more moments, more presence, but because we're at peace and at calm with these moments, with what is. and that peace within, we start to experience a sense of calm and a sense of slowing down. So it's this interesting thing where we both slow down because we're more present with everything, and we speed up because we're experiencing more moments of presence. So that is the that's one of the tips. Let me check on messages here. Yeah. All right. So then the next guy is a to-do list item strategy that's worked really well for me, and it builds on what we just talked about. And that is to make your to-do list. Mindfulness is not about just floating aimlessly through life. It's about, perhaps you can make a plan for the day. And then as you're completing each task, what makes this more effective is to really stay with each task without thinking of additional ones. That's why I was stressed out in my car example earlier. The ability to stay focused on the task at hand, and once it's complete, you check it off. You know that you made a to-do list, you can move on to the next item. But what drains most of our energy is that while we're doing one thing, our mind is already wandering to the next thing and the next thing. And then again, we get overwhelmed by just thinking of too many things. That's all it is. So with this trick, we're going to get through our to-do list better than before, in fact, because we're being more efficient, more productive with each task at hand, more present, make fewer mistakes. There's lots of research on that as well. And just knowing that you have a plan for the day, and as soon as you're done with this task, you move on to the next, and then you're present with that one. So it all is a little bit of a trick of compartmentalizing what you have to do. And then someone might say, well, aren't you just tricking the mind, Chris? And yeah, that's what you're doing. The mind is a tool we're supposed to use. It's not meant to dominate us. It's not meant to control us. We're meant to control it. But we've been so conditioned to live in reactivity that this constant reactivity has empowered the mind to be in control all the time. So we'll do a meditation, guided meditation, in the second half of this session that illustrates how powerful the mind is, how it grabs your attention and pulls it away constantly. And we can't even keep our attention on something as basic as our breath for more than a few seconds without the mind jumping in already and saying, let's think of something else. Not the present moment, something in the past or the future. So coming out of this conditioning is going to take a little practice. We've all lived several decades in the state of resistance and reactivity and of controlling and steering. And so to come out of that, it's not going to happen overnight, but again, 1% relief is tangible, it's instant, it's real, and that informs and inspires us to create that next 1% of improvement. So that would be another tip. So another thing to recognize is that everything is energy, and thus we can work with energy. So whenever we feel drained, whenever we hit a roadblock, a mental block, a creativity block, when we notice it's not working, like if we're writing an email and we just stay stuck on one sentence, or we just kind of repeat and loop over it and it's never ready. So those are signs. That's life saying we need to change our energy about this situation. It's so easy to get stuck in the energy of a particular situation. So there's lots of wonderful, easy ways to change the energy. You could take a cold shower. Those are familiar with Wim Hof, he's built a career around that and has multiple world records around activating that inner furnace that's there, that again, that evolved through evolution, that kept us safe in survival situations. And when we do a radical temperature change, ice plunge, cold showers, that reactivates that. And it brings about a completely new energy, and out with the old and in with the new. If you're doing any task and you're feeling stuck in some way, you could simply go for a quick walks in nature, just outside even. You don't have to live in a forest to do this, just outside with the breeze and the air, looking up at the sky and the clouds, and maybe there's a few trees nearby and a lawn that you could put your feet in. The ions start to shoot through the Mother Earth and fill your body with this rush of groundedness. If you have a pet, you could take your dog for a walk and change your energy that way. When I was writing my book, I'd run into creative blocks constantly. If I would recognize that if it's me writing, nothing happens, nothing gets done. I just labor over each sentence endlessly, and that's not very productive. So I would have to find ways to change the energy constantly throughout the day. And that might be doing the dishes, or doing the laundry, little things, just something to change it up. And that change will, when you come back, you'll notice right away solutions come to you, insights come to you. It's flowing again. You return to the flow. And that flow is really, it's not us, we're not doing. It's being open, being a vessel, you've heard that term before, to the doing coming through us. That everything that exists in spirit form and formless, that we are vessels to create form from that. We're translators, and we take that formless energy and we give it shape. So that's our purpose here. And along with that, things resonate and things don't. And so the ability, the awareness to focus on the things that do resonate, as opposed to attaching meaning to every thought that comes along. With that awareness, we can optimize our experience of life and our navigation of life, and then of course our purpose in life, because now we're really only spending time more and more and more with things that resonate. And so, yes, we have a question. Ida.
Hi, nice to see you again this morning.
See you, yes.
Yes, last night I sleep well, and when I wake up, I try to do what you say about be present, just like enjoy every little moment in what happened in. So every morning I do riding my bicycle. So I try to enjoy the road that I take, say hello to people that I meet, and today I'm happy. Happy. I woke up in happiness. I like it. But just like I said to you, I have swing emotion. So when the happiness came, it's easy to deal with it because everyone wants to be happy, right? It's so I can enjoy it. It seems like I can face the world. I feel so powerful. But the problem is I'm a little worried about when the sad mood came, because my swing emotion just can turn into in a minute. I can change so quickly. So how to deal with sad emotion? Because whenever sad came to me, I really feel hopeless. Many people give me advice. I cannot take their advice. I feel so anger. I feel so sad. And sometimes I don't know why this has happened, because it's just changing. Every morning I wake up happiness, and the next morning I wake up with sadness. I don't know how to deal with sadness emotion. I cannot be present when sad emotion came to me. So what is the trick to deal with it? Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful question. Yes, and you can see the joy on you when you stay a task like taking your bicycle for a ride, right? If you
Yes,
break that down into simple things and are present with those steps of saying hi and the air and so forth, and the movement, how much joy really flows through us. Now,
yes,
the key with this is that we don't attach ourselves to any emotions. So even in the positive ones, it's important to allow them to fade, right? They come along and they fade, to not cling to them, so that we then the joy starts to turn into clinging and the fear of losing them. So that's kind of one part. It's easy to experience happy emotions, right? We like them. So
yes,
it's a little more advanced in terms of being able to then let go of the happiness as well when sad emotions come along. And so that takes us to the sad emotions. So feelings are feelings, and ultimately feeling everything fully is what our life experience is about. And if we can stay on the side of awareness, meaning you're aware of your sad emotions, then they can't take you over. It's only when we identify, let that emotion pull us into it and we get lost in it, then it owns us, and then we amplify it ultimately with our attachment. We tend to get into loops. This is what I used to do about around sad emotions. I would amplify them because it's something about my makeup was that I would revel in the sadness, and I had to learn
yes,
to recognize where my emotion is, when it's arising, the onset, when it's arising, and then when it's passing, because that's what all of our feelings naturally do. They arise and they pass. So knowing that you become more of a container, a witnessing presence to all your feelings, positive or negative. So the positive side, you experience them while they're here, and when you notice that they fade, you're okay with that too, and see what comes along next. Maybe another positive feeling may come. You don't know that. As long as you stay present and open and allow things to flow, arise and pass, come and go, then you're present. Then you're actually being present. And so even in the experiencing of negative ones, as long as you're aware of it, you'll never get pulled into it deep enough for it to really affect you in a big way. You could still be sad. You're going to be sad. It's an unpleasant feeling to be sad. It's not great, but it'll never overwhelm you. And so if you stay present, if you stay aware of the sad feeling, you're essentially not in resistance to it, and you're not in reactivity to it. You don't amplify it. And more importantly, you actually see the lessons, the insight, something about yourself. There's enough space, enough breathing room between you and the feeling, between you and the thought that leads to a feeling, so that you can see really what's going on clearly. Is it stuff, there's space for old stuff to come up. Sad feelings are very often, if not always, a form of processing, a form of release. Something wants to come out, something wants to express itself. So it's so important for us to allow this system, this machine, this body to express whatever it's wanting to express, and to with knowing that everything comes and goes. So again, the nature of change that we spoke about earlier, that life is always changing, always evolving, always in motion. Same thing applies to our emotions, that they will arise and pass. And so you just kind of have to practice that a little bit with the sad stuff. It's like, okay, here comes the sad emotion.
yeah.
And you don't have to
Very
fight it.
unpleasant.
Yeah, you don't have to fight it. You don't have to resist it. See where it takes you. There's a lesson, there's a message in everything. And I wake up now and then and I have just crappy feelings, or just depressed energy about me. Again, it's a difference between saying I'm depressed, that's an identification verbalized, but to notice that there is a depressed energy moving through me, that's a very different attitude towards one's body and one's feelings. And so then you hold space for that energy. It's going to move through you. So it's only the resistance that keeps it stuck and that makes it bigger than what it is. So
Yes.
I hope that helps. That was a
Okay.
great question. Thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
lovely to see you smile in such a great mood. We can, smile. We can be happy about even feeling unpleasant things. And
Yes, I
yeah,
left. I left my my stupid condition. My friend, sometimes my friend asks me, "How could you still smile, still laughing, still make joke to make your friend laugh while you crying?" And I said, "Why I should be sad? I can laugh on my sadness."
yeah, that's beautiful. Exactly. We become bigger than any situation when we're on the side of presence and awareness. Nothing can get to us anymore, and we occupy a broader spectrum, a more bandwidth. And then our thoughts and feelings are tiny little, movements within that broader bandwidth. And that's really being part of the big current of life. It's so much bigger than us and our own little thoughts and feelings. If we're really attached to thoughts and feelings, then our life experience is so small. But when we can be the witnessing presence to those thoughts and feelings, we become bigger than any situation. So nothing can get us. We can basically just flow and enjoy and enjoy the flowing. And that includes all the little ups and downs and all the quote unquote positive and negative emotions, because ultimately they become so small that it all doesn't really matter. It's you're alive, you feel your aliveness, you're connected to the wonder and the miracle of new situations coming along, and the fact that we exist. You see things, opportunities, the abundance, right? That's all around us that we don't see when we're myopically focused on just one little thing. So it's a much bigger experience of life to come out of that attachment to individual thoughts and feelings. So wonderful. Thank you. All right. A little time check here. Okay. With that said, if there's no other comments, um, we'll move into our guided meditation. This will consist of two parts. It starts with some thought awareness, and it's a breath work exercise. And the reason I call it thought awareness is because as we focus on our breath, we will become very quickly aware, as I mentioned earlier, of how the mind jumps in and tries to pull our attention away. And when we feel our mind drifting, there's a key moment where we notice that our mind has drifted. The moment we notice something, that is the moment we have a choice of either accepting the situation for what it is, not wanting it to be different, or getting frustrated about it and wanting it to be different and being in reactivity to it. So when that mind has drifted and we notice, oh my gosh, I was just lost in thought again for a minute or two or five, that is the key moment where we develop our awareness muscle so that we can accept the moment as it is, meaning, okay, my mind has drifted. And then without frustration, or with as little frustration as possible, bring your attention back to where you do want it to be, which is with your breath. And that's a microcosm example of countless situations, hundreds of situations every day when we notice that the reality in front of us is different than we want it to be, that we learn to come out of reactivity to it, because we have to accept the situation for what it is. We have to see it. We have to come out of resistance and rejection of it first in order to make a change. If we don't accept it, that's when we're in reactivity. We stew in it. We amplify it unnecessarily. We miss out on the next moment of life coming along. It all becomes a jumbled mess. So, seeing things for what they are with as little judgment about it as possible is the first step. And then the second one is to take action. Clear action is what I call it, because you're clear headed and you see things more clearly of what needs to be done. And that's when you bring your attention back to your breath. And that's the first part of this exercise, thought awareness. It's creating a little gap between your thoughts and your experience of thoughts. And because you're able to observe thoughts, that should be proof enough rational understanding enough to realize that we are not our thoughts. Sometimes we grow up and we get so accustomed, so glued to our thoughts that we think we are our thoughts, but we're not. We're the awareness, the canvas behind ourselves, our identity. And the same thing applies to feelings, and that's the second part of the exercise. We're going to scan the body. Those of you who have done Yoga Nidra maybe will be familiar with this. Similar, but the point is not to get into some ultra relaxed and cozy and blissful state. The point is to just observe sensations that are arising in our body all day long. We're biochemical electrical beings, so we're always interacting with our environment. There's trillions of cells inside of us that are engaged in this collaboration to make you. It's pretty crazy, the whole thing. And so there's this aliveness, all this activity is happening, and we're just not tuned to it. So in the second part of the guided meditation, we're going to tune into our aliveness in our body. And you may have felt that when you go for a run or for a gym, or when you get off your bike ride, you feel alive. These vibrations that are going through your body. So that's because we've activated them more intently, with intention, through exercise, but they're always there. So to fine tune the mind to be aware of our aliveness all the time, that puts you in touch with right now. The senses, seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, feeling, always, it can only be in relationship to what's happening right now. You can't see something in the future. You can't smell something that hasn't arrived yet. You can't hear a sound that hasn't happened yet. When we work through and stay connected to our senses, all of which show up as sensations in our body, then that automatically means we're present. So that's the second part of the exercise. All right. Everyone's ready? Thumbs up, yeah? All right. Okay. So with that said, let's find a comfortable position. Close our eyes and our mouth. And bring your attention to the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. If you have trouble locating your breath, you may breathe slightly harder once or twice. Until you feel the touch of your breath. And then return to natural breath, normal breath. Seeing your breath as it is, without wanting it to be different. If your breath is shallow, let it be shallow. If your breath is deep, let it be deep. If it's more in the left nostril, let it be the left nostril. Or if it's more in the right nostril, let it be the right nostril. Or if it's in both nostrils, let it be both. Notice the temperature of the incoming breath. Notice the temperature of the outgoing breath. Notice if there's a difference. Notice the pace of the incoming breath. Notice the pace of the outgoing breath. Notice if there's a difference. Let the detail of your breath pull you in closer. Whenever you find that your mind has wandered, simply notice it, and with as little frustration as possible, bring your attention back to the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. Now gradually bring your attention to the crown of your head, an area about the size of your fist. And notice any sensations that may arise. It could be a tingling sensation, or a tickly sensation, a prickly sensation, stinging sensation, pulsating sensation, feelings of pressure or of lightness, of heat or cold. Any sensation is a valid sensation. No need to look for a particular sensation. Simply observe what is without wanting it to be different. And if you feel no sensation at all, that's all right too. Now gradually move your attention to your forehead. Come around to the left side of your head. And around to the back of your skull. And around to the right side of your head. Always noticing any sensations that may arise. Now move your attention into your right eye socket. And over to the bridge of your nose. And on to the left eye socket. And down to the left cheek. And over to your lips. And on to the right cheek. And down to your chin. Always noticing any sensations that may arise. Now moving down to the front of your throat. Around to the left side of your neck. And around to the back of the neck. The right side of your neck. Moving down into your right shoulder. And into the bicep. Around to the tricep. Down into the back of your elbow. Around to the inside of your elbow. On to the inside of your forearm. At the outside of your forearm. I'll move your attention into the back of your hand. Around to the palm of the hand. And into your fingers. All the way to the tips. Always noticing any sensations that may arise. Now bring your attention to your left shoulder. Moving down into your bicep. Around to the tricep. Now the back of your elbow. The inside of your elbow. Now the inside of your forearm. The outside of your forearm. Now move your attention into the back of your hand. And around to the palm of your hand. And into your fingers. All the way to the tips. Always noticing any sensations that may arise. Now bring your attention to your left upper back and slowly, evenly scan left to right. Moving down to your right middle back, slowly, evenly scan right to left. Moving down to your left lower back, slowly, evenly scan left to right. Always noticing any sensations that may arise. Now bring your attention to your left upper chest and slowly, evenly scan left to right. Moving down to your right rib cage, slowly, evenly scan right to left. Moving down to your lower left stomach, slowly, evenly scan left to right. Always noticing any sensations that may arise. Now move your attention down into your root chakra, the area above your pubic bone. Now gradually move your attention over to your left hip. On to the left butt cheek. The right butt cheek. The right hip. Moving down into your right upper thigh, first the front. Then the back. Down into the back of your knee. Down to the front of the knee. Moving down to your shin. Around to the calf. And now starting with the heel, slowly, evenly scan across the bottom of your foot. Around to the top of the foot. And into your toes. All the way to the tips. Always noticing any sensations that may arise. Now shift your attention to your left upper thigh, first the front. Then the back. Moving down to the back of your knee. Around to the front of the knee. Moving down into your shin. And around to the calf. Now starting with the heel, slowly, evenly scan across the bottom of your foot. Around to the top of the foot. And into your toes. All the way to the tips. Always noticing any sensations that may arise. When you're ready, you may gradually open your eyes. Relax your body. Notice your environment. Notice yourself in your environment. Notice the energy in your body. Notice your aliveness.